Hey Josh, what do you use to listen to all your podcasts? Because I know you're a big podcast fan. What kind of app are you using?
I love podcasts. I listen to them all the time. Religious podcasts, sports podcasts. I use Podcast Republic, dude.
You use Podcast Republic?
I do. I love it.
Absolutely. You know why I use it? Because it's a great app. So fans of the Empty Wagon Fans Football Podcast, if you own an Android device, do us a favor, go to the Google Play Store and download Podcast Republic app. Fantastic app that allows you to get all your favorite podcasts directly on your Android device, as proven by myself and Josh. That's Podcast Republic app. We use it. We love it. Search all the podcasts, favorites, one click away. Easy, smooth. So make sure to set Empty Wagon Fans Football Podcast as a favorite so you don't miss any episodes here from the guys. Again, that's Podcast Republic app. Available on your Android device.
I mean, I went out and bought an Android device just to use the Podcast Republic app.
You're a smart man.
That is dedication, bro.
It is.
So proud of you.
Podcast. And join with me as always, two best fantasy football minds around. Brad's dad, Josh the boss. I'm your co-host, Pat Curran. You already knew that. We got a great episode ahead of us today, as we'll be breaking down the NFC East. And of course, we're going to talk about our reports and rumors. If you like what you hear and want to fire some questions at us that help you win your league this year, that's just around the corner, folks. Follow us, the podcast, on Twitter at EmptyWagonFF. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, plenty of social media avenues to reach out to us on and check us out. Elsa's in the studio as always too, folks. Let's check in with the guys now and see what they're up to. Brad, are you pumped for the breakdown of the NFC East?
Of course I'm pumped for the breakdown of the NFC East. What kind of question is that?
Well, they got the defending Super Bowl champs, so what's not to be excited about?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I think there's a lot to talk about here. We have a lot of good players in questionable situations. I think it's one of the best breakdowns we've had. We have a guest coming in on the show.
We do, our first guest caller, so that's history right there. More history to be announced later on.
I'm pretty excited about that.
Our first Skype in that isn't us. It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it should be, I guess.
We're doing big things. I think he's our number one fan, too.
He is a loyal listener. You got to throw props to him on that one.
And this is the first evening taping we've done in a while, and Elsa's in full form today.
Elsa is just...
She's all over it.
It is past her bedtime, so it's past my bedtime too. So, but hey, we're here. We're in it.
That, but he's the only one that doesn't have kids.
Such is the life.
Other than Elsa.
Before we get into our show, just want to give a good shout out to our awesome partner, Blue Spade Productions, for all the help they provide with our social media marketing and listener interactions. Check that out. Check them out on Twitter at Blue Spade Pro. Reports and rumors. Right now, real quick, really only got one to talk about. Near and dear to my heart. Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, they're going to be at camp. They are not holding out. This is great news. Yes, love the clap. Didn't think they would hold out because, they're my boys, and I believe that they would come through because they bleed red, white, and blue. But now it's just official. So draft them as high as you want because they're here, and they're going to put up numbers this year. Guys, what do you think? Anything to add?
I mean, I think we all figured they were going to show up to camp. We weren't too worried about it. But I think the bigger thing is the Gronk not retiring. Like, we're 100% sure now he's not retiring. He's going to play this year. I think that is, especially for you, Pat, probably a nice little weight off your shoulders.
Oh, yeah, huge weight off my shoulder. I mean, he could have very well retired and gone to a party boat, and no one would have been surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is both of their last years playing football.
I mean, I make the joke with Pat all the time saying maybe the big three all leave at the same time from the Patriots and just walk away in the sunset. But I think they want to win on a Super Bowl. I think the way it ended last year, especially with Brady and his ego and everything he's got going on with him. Not ego, but his swagger, however you want to put it.
Your ego can never be as big if you're the GOAT, so he does not have an ego.
Okay.
All right, well.
Yeah. But no, that would be terrible if the big three left at the same time. I don't think Brady's going to leave after this year just because he said he's going to play to 45. And I believe him, or I want to believe him.
I mean, we haven't seen that from a quarterback being a top quality quarterback, for fantasy purposes at least, at that age. But, I mean, he's breaking all the windows out there, right?
I mean, he was the most efficient quarterback at the age of 40 ever to play in the NFL.
Yeah.
So, I believe him. He didn't show any signs of regression last year.
I mean, reigning NFL MVP. So, he has got that going for him. So that's exciting. And that's going to wrap up our reports and rumors segment of the show. Now we're going to move into a Yep. This is Elsa's actually favorite segment, and it's actually ADP love-hate. A lot of fans gave some love about this segment last episode, so we incorporated in this one. This is ADP love-hate, ADP of 50 through 75. So PPR, ADP love-hate. So we're going to start with the guys that we love, 50 to 75. Josh, who do you love 50 to 75?
All right, so my love right here is number 66 overall, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, and his name is Mr. Michael Crabtree. The reason I love Michael Crabtree is because we've seen that he's a touchdown magnet. He's never had a great quarterback, and I think Joe Flacco is going to be decent enough for him to utilize. Joe Flacco has shown that he can utilize Steve Smith before in the past. He's going to key in on one guy, and Michael Crabtree's talented enough to be that guy.
Better than Derek Carr?
No. I'm not saying that he's better than Derek Carr. But he does have a Super Bowl win. Derek Carr does not. But if you're going by that, Trent Dilfer's a great quarterback too. So, no, with his ADP, though, at 66 overall, to me, he's going after Marvin Jones, after Chris Hogan, after Corey Davis. You can get an absolute value for a guy who's going to be a number one receiver here. Yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you agree? Disagree?
I mean, you know I love Crabtree. I liked him last year. I think he was just getting fed up in Oakland with the way the team was running and everything. And it's nice to see him away from the AFC West. You don't have to worry about him and Talib going at it anymore and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing for him. I think he had a lot of off-the-field stuff that affected his on-the-field play.
Absolutely, and I really do think that he's going to have a pretty good year in Baltimore this year. What about you, Brad? What you got for your love?
For my love, I got Marlon Mack. He's the only running back now in Indy. So
The only?
well, he's the only running back of note.
He's the only one on the roster. He's the only
What
one.
about Hines?
Well, we got Nine Hines, who's a rookie. Who,
Okay.
but we've talked on the show a lot, right, about how rookie running backs last year was the anomaly, not what's usually happening. That's
Like the 2013 wide receiver class.
exactly. So we got Marlon Mack, who's been there for last year was his rookie year. Now we got him taking over. Robert Turbin's suspended for the first couple games. So if Andrew Luck's back, obviously with everything with Indy, you need Andrew Luck back, correct?
He has to be there.
He has to be there, right? We all hope and pray that he's there because we all want to see good fantasy numbers. And
Was it last episode or was it our mock draft episode that you guys said no matter where you take Marlon Mack, it always feels too high?
you're right. But let's talk about Marlon Mack.
I think you were the one that said that.
I
think
did.
it was, yeah.
It probably was me because that's what I like to say, you know.
It definitely
But
was.
Marlon Mack, his ADP is 70th pick. So we're talking into the 6th round, beginning of the 7th in a 12-team draft. He's going behind like Tevin Coleman, Tariq Cohen, right before maybe Kerryon Johnson and Marshawn Lynch. So I think he's in a great place. These other guys we talked about, they are not going to start. Tariq Cohen and Tevin Coleman are not going to be the starting running backs on the team. Marlon Mack can be that starting running back. And if you're drafting a running back that late, you get a starting running back on an NFL team.
What's his ADP?
70th.
I like him.
I like starting running back at 70, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. That's the plus side about it.
Being a starting running back doesn't get necessarily guaranteed productivity, but I like the flashes that I saw from him last year. I agree with you.
Exactly, because you can get some boom plays. I mean, Tariq Cohen and Tevin Coleman, you're preying on boom plays from them because they're probably going to get the ball 5 times a game. If Marlon Mack gets the ball the whole time, he could, break through the glass ceiling.
Oh, wow. What a setup. But it was a good setup.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. He's setting himself up for his own drops. All right.
And Pat, who do you have here?
Who's my love?
Yeah, who do you love?
Well, it's actually a tight end. Kyle Rudolph at 73. Whatever. Round 6, pick 11. And we talked about it last episode when we broke down the NFC North. That this guy can be a top 5, top 4 tight end. He can be right up there with Ertz, Kelsey, and Gronk, and maybe even Jordan Reed, but we'll talk about that later in the show when we break down our NFC East. He has Kirk Cousins now. Better quarterback, great offense. He's a very productive tight end. Red-nosed reindeer.
Yeah, I mean,
If you can get him, pretty much 7th round, that's a great tight end. You can start every week in the 7th round.
Yeah.
that you're getting in the 7th round.
I mean, when we know Kirk Cousins loves his tight end, when Jordan Reed was healthy last year, he used him a lot. He used Vernon Davis. He used every tight end he could.
Niles Paul.
He made Niles Paul somewhat fantasy relevant.
Yeah.
So
and everyone else was hurt because he put him in bad spots.
I like it. Where's he going compared to other tight ends, though? Do you know that off the top of your head there, Pat?
I'm going to look it up real quick. But honestly, I do like this ADP. However, you guys kind of, picked it for me, so.
Yeah, we did. We took bids on him.
Yeah, you took the good ones there.
He's the 7th tight end taken.
He is the 7th tight end taken, and he's going after Ingram, Olsen, and obviously Gronkowski, Ertz, Graham.
Yeah, I think he's just more of a safe tight end than he's probably going to finish as the 7th tight end in fantasy.
I like him more than Ingram this year, actually.
But I still think he'll probably still finish as the 7th tight end in fantasy. Like, when you draft him, you're getting the 7th best tight end in fantasy.
I had him last year, and I was pretty happy.
Yeah, you can start him every week. Well, that's what I mean, but he's a 7th tight end, but he's always going to be consistent. Like, you can just set him in your lineup, and you don't have to worry about it.
Fire him up, dude.
Yeah, fire him up.
You guys ready to get into some hates?
You want me to start with my hate?
Yeah, dude. Let's hear it.
All right. This is going to be a great segment that can cross over to you since you're so high on him. Again, I was pick 3 here. So, hate Corey Davis at 63, going 6th round, 2nd pick.
Ouch.
Well, that's just too high. That is way too high for Corey Davis. I mean, what has he done? Because he hasn't done anything that I've seen. He hasn't ever produced.
Yeah, that one season, which we've talked about rookie wide receivers.
But even then, there's no reason Corey Davis should be going before Michael Crabtree, before Sammy Watkins, Edelman, Fuller, Emmanuel Sanders.
Well, he should go before
Emmanuel
Edelman.
Sanders.
He should go before Edelman, based on the suspension.
He's going almost 18 picks before Emmanuel Sanders. That's insane.
He's the number 1 in Tennessee.
He is the number 1. There's no other wide receivers there to worry about in Tennessee.
Doesn't mean he's going to be good.
He's going to be super good.
Okay, well, you can wait on Corey Davis, or just don't take him and take another wide receiver that you know is going to be good, like Sammy Watkins, that has Patrick Mahomes, like Julian Edelman, who is Tom Brady's favorite target, like Michael Crabtree, who you already said you love.
I do, and
you already said you love Emmanuel Sanders.
I agree with you. I think that if you take him there, you're reaching. I'm not disagreeing with you.
I love Jordy Nelson too.
You do love Jordy Nelson, but I would take him over Jordy Nelson. A billion times.
I might. All right, who do you hate, Josh?
My hate was pretty easy. I mean, I didn't really put too much effort into this because whenever I saw that name jump out for me, it was just like, okay.
It doesn't matter who you hate because Brad's still going to do a drop.
Well, I don't think that Brad needs to do a drop.
He's still going to do one.
I might. You never know.
Who do you hate?
I hate Royce Freeman, and that might come as a surprise to some of you because he's a Bronco. Yeah, I think he's just doing the same one. The main reason I hate Royce Freeman is because he's going 53rd overall, and there are better running backs that are going after him.
Like?
I even like Rex Burkhead. I like Rex Burkhead, and he's going 82nd overall. Royce Freeman is going 53rd overall. Lamar Miller is going after him. Ronald Jones is going after him. Lamar Miller, we've talked about.
Marlon Mack's going after him.
Yeah, we've talked about. He's a solid RB2. Denver, they don't have a clear-cut running back right now, and they've said they want to use 2 or 3 guys. Even though C.J. Anderson had 1,000 yards last year, they kept trying to get Devontae Booker involved.
Yeah, Devontae Booker's going to be the passing down guy.
And they want to continue to do that again this year. So as much as I have high hopes for Royce Freeman in the future, it's too early to take him, guys. Do not bite on these rookie running backs. We talked about this with Kerryon Johnson before.
But who was that?
We've talked about Kerryon Johnson before, who I do love. Thanks for the love song, Brad. But if you're sitting there and you're staring at Royce Freeman or Lamar Miller or even Deion Lewis in a PPR league, you cannot take Royce Freeman just because you think he's going to be the number 1.
Yeah, and you can get Marlon Mack almost 2 rounds later. You can get Kerryon Johnson almost 2 rounds later. Rex Burkhead 2 rounds later. I mean, so you're talking about a 5th round pick, and you can almost lose your draft if you screw up the 5th round pick.
Absolutely. That's too high for Royce Freeman. I'm sorry.
You know what else is too high? Another rookie running back. Sony Michel. Do you guys see where his ADP is?
Yeah, he was almost going to be my hate, but
Yeah,
he
me
was
too, but
1 too early.
I figured I'd stir the pot more with Corey Davis with this one over here. Yeah. So, but yeah, I do hate Sony Michel. He's at 50. Just want to throw that.
I mean, Sony Michel could be great. New England has a great running offense. It's just the problem is that you don't know which running back it's going to be week to week.
Well, everyone's just like, oh my God, the draft capital they spent on him. He's got to be great. No, it's very possible Bill doesn't even use him or uses him very minimally.
Yeah, that's why I almost picked Chris Hogan. Yep. Honestly.
Chris Hogan was one too, but he's the only wide receiver there for the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's why
Are you kidding me?
Pick. What, no, Jordan Matthews?
Are you kidding me? Yeah, they have Jordan Matthews.
Yeah, who's in the slot. And last time I checked, Gronk runs the slot.
All right. So who's your
Brad, who do you hate?
My hate is a quarterback. And I almost didn't want to pick a quarterback just because obviously none of us here like taking quarterbacks early. I took Carson Wentz, whose ADP is, where is it at? I lost it.
I want to say it's like 60th.
Yeah, he's like he's at the 70th. So into the 6th round in a 12-team draft. Oh, you want me to do it?
Okay,
Carson Wentz, right?
Away with these drops, guys.
So we got Carson Wentz, who is coming off an ACL injury that happened at the end of the year last year. Everybody's all excited because he's playing 7-on-7 without a knee brace. You know what doesn't happen in 7-on-7? You don't get sacked. You don't get hit. So.
But they got Nick Foles.
Have you ever played 7-on-7 with me?
Yeah, but in practice, they are not going to hit Carson Wentz. So I'm still worried that he's not going to start the season off. You're using a 6th, 7th round pick on him. You're picking him before Drew Brees, who's going to be there, Cam Newton, who's going to be awesome fantasy quarterback, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Stafford, all these guys that I know they're coming in the season healthy, ready to go. Yeah, Ben Roethlisberger even, who I can get way later. I don't like using it on a quarterback, a pick that early on a quarterback anyway, but even a quarterback coming off an ACL that happened so late in the year.
So late.
You have to worry about him not being healthy because he did use his legs a lot. Didn't he tear his ACL diving in the end zone?
Yeah.
It was on a goal line play, right?
But he kept playing.
Yeah. And then they said, what happened?
Yeah, he kept going at it. That tells me about his toughness.
His toughness.
I like toughness.
Toughness does when you're not on the field?
Nothing
for your fantasy football team.
That's Jordan Reed.
Every week breaking down these divisions because now we're getting to the NFC East. Breakdown time. It's going to be another PPR format. And we'll mention some ADPs if they're worth mentioning. But instead of all the numbers and figures, we're just going to keep it open. Maybe some opinions, some talk, who we like, who we dislike, and who's going to help your team to victory so you can get that sweet title belt next year. Brad, what do you know about title belts?
I know they're pretty awesome when you can set them on your desk and everybody has to walk past them and stare at them. And I need to start bringing it to the podcast again. I know when we podcasted before in my garage, Josh had to stare at it all the time. He loves staring at it.
It was beautiful.
Nice and gold.
I really enjoyed it.
So we'll kick it off with the Giants, then we'll hand it over to Josh for Philly. I got to hit up Washington, and then we'll bring it around to Dallas. And we got that guest caller, Rob the Heartthrob, going to come in and talk about Dallas.
Yeah, he's going to talk about Dallas a lot.
A lot. So, Brad, take it away with the New York Football Giants. Man, I hate them.
All right, the New York Giants, right? 2 Super Bowls in the last so many years.
Don't need to mention that.
Oh,
not
okay.
fantasy relevant.
Not fantasy relevant?
No,
all right.
not at all.
So they got a new coach coming in there, right? Pat Shermer coming from Minnesota.
Got to be better than the last guy.
Intriguing.
Yeah. Which everybody thought Ben McAdoo was going to be great because he was the offensive coordinator with the team.
And he looked like a porn star.
And they thought, well, no, have you guys seen the meme about him when he looked like Emilio Estevez from Mighty Ducks? Like before it was nice hair, then it was slick back hair. Like when they go D2, when they go play the Iceland team, that's what Ben McAdoo was. He was Emilio.
He was awful.
Oh, we'll watch it later after the show, Pat, and you can reminisce.
I'm trying to imagine it. I don't know.
Brad's
Anyway, let's go to the Giants.
Is Hot Stuff texting you over there, Brad?
Yeah, she is.
All right.
So let me get back into the Giants here. Okay, so Pat Shermer's there, which I think, who was the offense coordinator last year for Minnesota, who made a lot of things happen in Minnesota. And I think Minnesota had a great offense last year, right? With
a great year.
Quarterbacks that we did not expect to be great.
Absolutely.
So let's get into the shiny new toy they got there, right? They got this shiny, new, fancy toy, the RB1 out of the draft, the greatest running back since Adrian Peterson, right? To come out. Supposedly. With an ADP of the 7th overall.
Doesn't skip leg day.
No, he doesn't.
Didn't Sean Payton call him like a once-in-a-generational talent?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It could be.
Could be, but he hasn't played it down yet.
The funny thing is they say every running back is the best running back since Adrian Peterson every year. It's Todd Gurley. It's Zeke. They say this every year.
Todd Gurley's pretty good.
But this year's phenoms, Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, and even Dalvin Cook, who had flashes. I mean, so early to go for a guy who's never done it. I mean, ESPN's even putting him as one of the best players under 25. Never took a snap yet. But I think
doesn't skip like that.
He doesn't.
He's got great legs.
The Giants' defense is going to be, I think, worse than last year. I don't think it's possible, but it's still going to be worse than last year. They let JPP go, who, with his 7.5 fingers, he'll still get a quarterback.
Oh.
So, yeah.
It's real bad.
But Saquon, the shiny new toy there, they're going to use him out of the backfield. They're going to throw the ball to him. They're going to get him the ball. They're going to feed him the ball. As long as he stays healthy. They tried to improve that offensive line. They even went to New England and got their left tackle.
Nate Solder.
Yep, Nate
Thanks
Solder.
for bringing that up.
No problem.
They did revamp the offensive line. We only have isn't almost the entire offensive line brand new?
Yeah, because it was a terrible offensive line last
It was
year.
real bad.
And we can all admit Saquon Barkley will be better than Orleans Darkwa was last year. Or any
5
other.
brand new
Paul
guys.
Perkins? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Is he still in the NFL?
He is. He's on the physically unable to perform list.
He's on the pup.
He's on the pup.
That's what everybody cares about Paul Perkins is crickets, okay?
It's true.
Let's move on here.
So, yeah, 5 new offensive linemen. That unit should just be so cohesive.
I mean, yep. I hope that works out, okay? All right, then you got Eli, right? So I'm going to talk about Eli for a minute here, who I know Josh is going to say he's washed. He's old. He's terrible.
No, I'm
Who did he get benched for last year?
Geno Smith.
it was Geno, your
Oh,
boy.
my God.
Geno Smith.
I was so happy
They
that
broke
week.
his start streak with Geno Smith. But Eli's got an ADP in the 14th round. And I think you can use him as a matchup-based play with the weapons that they do have, which I'm going to get into the wide receivers and tight ends. I mean, really, Eli, as long as he puts it close to these wide receivers, he should be somewhat productive. Biggest thing with Eli every year is turnovers, right? And turnovers kill you. If you play in any type of league where it's more than -2 for interceptions, I am not going near Eli with a 10-foot pole. I don't even want to go at Eli too much. But like I said, he's as late as he is, you could stream him. If you're like me and wait on quarterbacks, you could probably stream Eli from time to time.
I do like the streaming option for Eli, especially since Odell's back, especially since Ingram's in his second year.
Yeah.
And now he has Saquon. Eli could be a great streaming option.
All right, then let's move on to Odell since you brought him up here. ADP of the 10th player taken.
10th?
10th.
That's a
player.
great ADP for Odell.
Yeah, you're talking
I love
end
that.
of the first round, right? You can get him on that turn. You could tag him up with a Fournette, Melvin Gordon, like I did in our mock draft a couple episodes ago. I mean, I think that's great. Last year, he only played in 4 games, right? He got hurt in the preseason. He went out there, limped around, re-hurt his ankle. He had 40 targets in those 4 games limping around. So even being hurt, that's amazing numbers.
Yeah.
Odell, every year, he's always flirted around the 100-catch mark, either over 100 catches or right at it, 98, 95. Every year he's been in the league. And that first year, we all remember, he didn't even come in the league till week 5 or 6.
Yeah, guy's incredible. He's one of the best 3 receivers in the game.
Exactly.
Easily.
Antonio Brown is a tier break from all the wide receivers. We can all agree on that. I know everybody wants to put DeAndre Hopkins, but we have seen up and down years from DeAndre Hopkins.
Only when Brock Osweiler is quarterback.
Yeah, a lot of wide receivers can say that. A lot of wide receivers can say that.
What are the wide receivers you got there in New York?
They got Sterling Shepard, right? Brandon Marshall's gone, and we saw great flashes from Sterling Shepard last year when he was the only healthy wide receiver they had. We had Sterling Shepard out there. ADP in the 10th round, too. I can get a solid wide receiver, too, in the 10th round. I'm happy about it, right? He's maybe not – he probably won't be your wide receiver 1 or 2 on your tean, but he can be that bye-week fill-in, that matchup play, maybe your flex option from week to week, depending on who they're playing.
Some good depth, some depth that you can rely on.
I like his upside.
Yeah, the thing you got to worry about with the Giants is they do play Philly twice a year, and Philly's secondary last year was pretty good. So obviously you are going to have to stream some of these guys.
Except in that Super Bowl. They weren't too great in that Super Bowl.
Well, they did kill Brandon Cooks, so.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you do what you got to do to win the game, okay?
All right. And then we got Evan Ingram, right? He broke all the records for rookie tight ends. All of them.
Every single one of them?
I mean,
There's not one he didn't break.
I don't know. I mean, for fantasy-wise, he's the best wide receiver we've had since Jeremy Shockey, who, weird, also was on the same team.
What about Gronk?
Aaron Hernandez.
All right.
Sorry, guys, he's dead.
Evan Ingram, all right. So ADP, he's in the 6th round. He's about 67 every year. He tight end. You brought up your love. He's going right before your love of Kyle Rudolph. Honestly, I see a little bit of regression happening this year from Evan Ingram. I think he was in a perfect fantasy situation for a tight end. He was the only healthy receiving option once mid-season happened that was actually on the team before it started, projected to get targets. So this year, I mean, he doesn't block either. So I wonder with Saquon Barkley if that might hurt him, not being a blocker, because we saw it hurt like a Jimmy Smith and stuff last year, where they'll bring another tight end to block.
What other tight ends they got? Will Tye? No.
No, they did sign a tight end in the offseason. Let me tap dance for a second here.
It doesn't matter. Okay, I'm just curious. Curiosity killed cat here.
No, the only tight end that's on that team that matters.
Elsa clearly doesn't want to hear about any other tight end, so we'll just stick with Ingram.
She should have her own drop.
She should.
She's the 4th host here.
Yeah, they don't have any really other options. Rhett Ellison, I guess, but like I said, Evan Ingram, he doesn't line up on the end of the line. He doesn't block, but he's pretty much a slot wide receiver. So that's what I got about the Giants. You guys have anything you want to add?
No, I think they actually could have some good value here in New York. As long as Saquon delivers, right? I think a lot of this hinges on Saquon delivering.
A lot of hype, so he better deliver.
And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised for Eli to have a pretty good fantasy season.
Like I said, streaming option, intriguing option, Eli Manning. But he is the Antichrist, so we can move on to Philly.
Well, that's strong.
Yeah,
Josh, what do you got for Philly?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's go move on to Philly.
Okay, Philly, here we go. So, all right, so the first guy that I want to talk about in Philly is the quarterback. Brad, you already talked about him in your hate segment, and that was Carson Wentz. The big issue with Carson Wentz, obviously, is the knee injury, and then when you correlate that to the ADP, he is the QB5 from what I can see over here in fantasypros.com. That's what I got. I think that you were using Fantasy Football Calculator for the other one. I like the way that they break it. Anyway, it's not important. So he's the 5th quarterback overall being taken in this draft. And for a guy who might not even play until week 5, week 6, they didn't let Nick Foles go for a reason. And from what I understand, they were being 2nd-round picks, 1st-round picks, talked about to get Nick Foles. So it tells me a lot that I need to know. And he was historically efficient last year. I mean, one of the most efficient quarterbacks as far as, completions to touchdowns go. So to sit there and have a guy that's going to sit there and you think can repeat that, I'm not banking on it. And he doesn't actually have great receivers. I mean, I'll get into that in just a minute, but this is a team who maximizes players. They're not necessarily be a treasure trove of fantasy talent for you. You have to expect some regression from Carson Wentz, even if he was healthy. There's no way he can continue to be this kind of efficient quarterback. So he ended up being a really great deal last year in drafts, but just be wary of him. So the next guy that we need to talk about are the running backs. Jay Ajayi. I know he helped him win a Super Bowl last year, but Jay Ajayi is not going to be a workhorse for these guys. They've never had a running back with more than 165 carries in a season. 165 carries in one season. Doug Peterson's never let a running back do that. So, to me, that means that Jay Ajayi, they say he could be in line for a bigger role. We thought that with Garrett Blount last year. It also didn't happen. Then they traded for Jay Ajayi. It won a Super Bowl, great. But you got to worry about those knees holding up. Those knees, he's got that bone-on-bone thing. They're probably going to use Corey Clement a little bit more, the Super Bowl darling, right?
I am pretty high on Corey Clement.
You're high on him. You watched him perform pretty well throughout the playoffs last year. I know I did. I was very excited about Corey Clement. So I think he's going to take away some of that Jay Ajayi. He might be a better deal for you later on in the draft. But stay away from Jay Ajayi. To the people that are going around him, it's not worth it to take him where he's going. So I actually like some of the receivers you can get better. Brandon Cooks goes right after him. I like Mark Ingram after him. I know he's got the suspension, but I still prefer him over Jay Ajayi. All right, so that's my break. That's my talk about the running backs. The next guy we're talking about is Alshon Jeffrey. So you guys know about Alshon Jeffrey, right?
Yeah, he gets hurt.
He gets hurt, right? Okay, so he gets hurt, and also
Wait, you're not talking about Corey Clement?
No, I told you I think he's going to get a lot of catches. I think that's.
He thinks he's going to cut in Jay Ajayi's role, and I see that.
But neither one of them are going to be clear-cut fantasy darlings.
No, yeah, all right, I agree with that.
So that's what we're saying. I think he's going to be a better
receivers.
deal later on in the draft. So thanks for that little interruption there, Pat. Now, Alshon Jeffrey, he performed pretty well. He had 9 touchdowns. But you guys know that he had 57 catches. That's it. 57. You know how many targets he had? 120. What does that tell you about Alshon's efficiency?
What does that tell you about Carson Wentz's accuracy?
No. Alshon's just not a great receiver. He didn't even have 800 yards receiving. He had 789. He hasn't had over 1,000 yards since 2014. He hasn't caught over 100 catches. Ever. The last time that he's caught more than 80 catches was 2014. He's never been completely healthy. Last year he was supposedly healthy, but he tore a rotator cuff or whatever in his arm. So he's also not going to be a guy who's giving you great value in your ADP. Now, they have other receivers there, but the other receivers are like Nelson Aguilar, another guy. I'm not really too high on boomer bust kind of guy.
Yeah, Nelson Aguilar's play last year were broke down plays that he got behind DBs, and Carson Wentz just found him 50 yards down the field with nobody around him.
Yeah, when I was looking at this, I mean, you thought fantasy football should be great over here in Philly. They're Super Bowl champs, but there really wasn't a lot to be excited about, guys. Like we said, Corey Clement might be a better value later on. If you're playing best ball, Nelson Aguilar might be a great guy for you to have on your team. But other than that, it's Carson Wentz, but he's valued too high right now. And then Zach Ertz. Outside of those guys, I mean, you know what Zach Ertz is. Right now, he's the number 3 tight end getting drafted overall.
Number 3rd?
Number 3. Sorry, number 3rd. Number 3rd. Yeah, it's a new number. I just wanted you guys to be the first ones to get in on it. No, he's the number 3. This is late. So he's the number 3 tight end getting taken overall after Kelsey and Gronk. And he still is going to give you that. I think he's still going to go ahead and continue to give you that great value.
Oh, yeah, I don't question Zach Ertz at all. I think Zach Ertz is exactly what Zach Ertz is. I mean, he's the behind Gronk. And he might even be above Kelsey this year because with the quarterback change in Kansas City, we don't know how Kelsey's going to be used.
Exactly.
But you're high on that QB change.
Yeah.
We'll table that. Keep going.
We'll table that for later. No, I do love him, though. But I don't ever take tight ends that high. But if you always have to look at talent in these situations, right? So if you're going to go ahead and get a game changer at one position versus just another guy who's average, right? So if you're staring down and you really don't like anybody else on the board and you still have a guy like Ertz up there, you have to take him because you understand how he can make your team much, much better than everyone else there because there's a clear tier break. We talk about tier breaks all the time between those 3 guys, everyone else.
Well, there's a tier break between Gronk and the other 2 guys, then the next 2, and then they break. Then it's boomer bust type guys, or if Greg Olsen stays healthy.
Exactly. So that's pretty much it for Philly. I mean, there wasn't a lot to dive into. Yeah. I mean, what do you guys got? You guys got anything you want to talk about?
No, I completely agree with you. I think you nailed it on the head. I think it's Wentz and Ertz, much like, they are the defending Super Bowl champs. They're a great team, much like New England. Brady and Gronk. Other than that, you kind of stay away from that backfield. The wide receivers aren't anything amazing, much like Phillies. So, yeah, I mean, those great teams that are great in real football sometimes don't always help you in fantasy.
It's just hard to pick the guy. They will have a guy that will be a number 1 wide receiver or possibly a number 1 running back week to week. Maybe not every week he'll be that guy, but sometimes you can't pick that guy because they scheme properly and they keep the defense guessing. Because if guys like us that can pick who's going to be the number 1 target there, then I'm pretty sure these people that pay millions of dollars to stop them know which one's going to get it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to compare these teams to, like, the Boston Celtics and Brad Stevens. I mean, when you can get guys like Marcus Smart and those guys to give you everything, like these guys are doing with Philly and New England, like players that no one else really wants, but they're maximizing their talent. I mean, that's going to give you great results on the field, but not necessarily.
Yeah, and one thing we haven't talked a lot about in these breakdowns is the Philly defense last year was a great fantasy defense to have. They got a lot of turnovers, a lot of sacks, and they improved their defensive line this year. They add Michael Bennett and some other pieces too. So see them to actually improve this year and actually maybe get a little better with the pass defense. And they do play some, possibly bad offenses. Like we're going to talk about Dallas later.
Washington. All
right, you ready for the controversial Washington Redskins? The only thing controversial about them is their name. But other than that, they're pretty
That's Brad's favorite game.
How would I describe Washington Redskins? I wouldn't say they're basic. I would say they have some intrigue here. It's not high intrigue, like, I don't know, maybe New York with Odell, Saquon, maybe even Eli.
Not a lot of headlines. A lot of fillers on the mid-page.
Basic and they're boring.
A lot of middle page material, right? It's front page, don't make the back page. But then those middle pages that fill up your paper.
It starts with that bland quarterback there.
I was going to say, the perfect middle page guy to start with is Alex Smith. His ADP is 142. That's QB 19. So if you're looking at streaming options and you're not in a league full of dumb who are taking 2 quarterbacks, then Alex Smith is a great streaming option. That's not a bleep. If Reed stays healthy, he could be the next Kelsey. Possibly better.
He has been. He has been the number 1 tight end.
When he is healthy.
When he's healthy and Gronk was hurt.
I hate the if because Reed is a great tight end.
It's such an if, though.
It is such an if. I have that on good authority from a tight end whisperer that Reed's going to be better than Kelsey.
I strongly disagree. Okay.
Wide receivers are not great there either, but neither were the wide receivers in Kansas City other than Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, and we can even say Tyreek Hill was kind of
Coming into
a
his
boom
own.
player. He wasn't your typical wide receiver.
Right. And what is the other one he had there? Jeremy Maclin. So, yeah, he's no stranger to not having great wide receivers. Running backs should help his production. Not explosive backs, but they demand attention in the box, and Thompson's a great pass-catching option out of the backfield. So, Alex Smith, I wouldn't draft him because there's other quarterbacks out there that if you're gonna... I'm a fan of the streaming option at quarterback. I'm just going to say that right now, fantasy football. So unless you're going to draft a guy like Deshaun Watson, Tom Brady, the top-tier guys, stream a quarterback because there's a lot of good ones out there. We already talked about Eli. We already talked about Smith. Wentz is going too high, so stay away from him. Even Dak.
Wentz was a steal last year with people that had him when he was healthy.
I drafted him in the last round last year.
Yeah, last round. Then Alex Smith was undrafted last year, and he ended up being like QB 1, 2, depending on what kind of format you played in. Alex Smith was a top-tier quarterback who you got off the waiver wire last year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
I did. It took me to a championship.
So the thing is that we've seen throughout Alex Smith's career is that before he got a great coach in Harbaugh, and then he went right to Andy Reid afterwards, Alex Smith struggled, and he struggled a lot. And we've actually saw Kirk Cousins regress each year under Jay Gruden.
Yeah, but a lot of the regression you saw from Alex Smith early in his year, the years he played in the 49ers thing we were talking about, is he went through, I think it was like 3 or 4 offensive coordinators in 5 years. So there was no consistency there at all. Jay Gruden has at least a system put in place that he likes to run. So at least there's not going to be a lot of changing going on there every year.
It's not necessarily a good system, but it's a system.
I mean, it got Kirk Cousins paid, didn't it?
It sure did.
It sure did.
Speaking of other guys that are getting paid is Darius Geis because he went pretty high in the draft, and his ADP is 34. And last week he was my hate because he's a running back in a running back depth chart that is crowded with now four running backs that are on a rookie contract. So it's a crowded depth chart. His ADP is way too high, and I think we've talked about enough rookie running backs and what not to do this year.
Wasn't there some news you heard about Darius Geis, Brad?
I think there was.
Oh, yeah. So he was getting out of his car to go to OTAs, and he dropped his keys, and Jay Gruden saw it and said, "You don't touch the ball."
So that's all you need to know about Darius Geis right there.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's obviously it's a joke, but we saw last year with Samaje Perine, right, who had more talent than Rob Kelly, who was better when he was on the field than Rob Kelly when he actually got to work, but he fumbled the ball a few times early in the season. So what they do? They relied on Rob Kelly and his 2.5 yards per rush.
Doesn't fumble the ball.
Doesn't fumble the ball, but doesn't get you first down.
Rob Kelly's going undrafted, so I'm not really going to talk much about Rob Kelly.
And the Perine's still there.
Perine's still there. His ADP is 250, so you can get him super late. And because odds are the work's going to Geis and Thompson. Thompson's ADP is 82. He's a great PPR option, as I just said. Put up big numbers last year in the games that he did play, but he's also had that injury bug there. So, 1, is he going to be healthy? And 2, his production was also kind of smoke and mirrors because he would have big plays that really boosted his numbers. You can't really rely on big plays. That's why you kind of like the guys that are sometimes, those 3 yards a carry, 4 yards, those averages that are, consistent.
Yeah.
Like a Lamar Miller. Boring guy.
Boring
you know
guy.
What? You know what he's going to give you. Thompson's more of a question mark.
He is, and he's also the injury bug has plagued him his whole career, including in Florida State. So we got to. I mean, I don't like Chris Thompson. You talked, Josh, when you were talking about Alshon Jeffrey and the efficiency he had. That's what Chris Thompson was last year. On 10 carries, he was destroying numbers.
Super efficient.
But I can't expect that week to week.
It's hard to rely on that.
Yeah, you cannot. Well, I mean, we had a guy in our league who only drafted 2 running backs, and Chris Thompson was his 2, and it worked out great for him in the
When
beginning.
he was healthy.
Yeah.
When he was. Wide receivers, not much excitement here. Jamison Crowder is still the number 1. His ADP is 82. It's kind of high for Jamison Crowder just because, well, now they have Alex Smith. Alex Smith he doesn't throw touchdowns to wide receivers for whatever reason.
Well, the thing Alex Smith does that I think really kind of hurts you for fantasy when you're trying to look at wide receivers is that Alex Smith throws to the open guy. He doesn't force balls in there. Because sometimes we like that gunslinger mentality for fantasy because that's what's going to get you a touchdown. That's what's going to get you those big plays. That's what Des Bryant lived off of was those touchdown passes and those contested catches. And I think that's why we saw a lot of stuff with Alex Smith last year. When Tyreek Hill got long touchdowns, Tyreek Hill was 5 yards past the defense. Jamison Crowder's that underneath threat. When Jordan Reed gets hurt this season and misses a couple games, Jordan Reed will step up. He is a slot guy. He takes over that middle of the field. And
Crowder will step up.
Oh, sorry, Crowder.
Yeah. We know what
Crowder.
you meant. Yeah. Josh Doxson, next highest ADP at 141. This is a guy I'm higher on. If I'm taking him at his ADP or right around it, I'd rather take Doxson around 141 than Crowder at 82 just because he's coming into his second year. He has Alex Smith. He's a talented wideout. I think they'll mesh in camp, and I think he'll put up numbers, much better numbers than he would in his rookie year.
So actually, I agree with that. I do like Josh Doxson, and I had him on my team for last year for a while. So whenever I picked him up, I started watching a lot more of his games, and I noticed that he doesn't have the greatest hands.
And he catches a lot of contested balls. That's where his.
It is weird because the ones that seem to be he struggles with the short and intermediate routes that are kind of like wide open. But if he has to, fight for a little bit, the dude's incredible.
Big players make big plays.
I don't understand it.
Well, I think that's what a lot of these younger wide receivers have the issue with is when they have a guy on them, they concentrate more on catching the ball. Yeah. When they're wide open, they're more worried about running or.
Well, they're thinking about cutting upfield before they caught the ball.
Exactly, that's what I think that's what hurts a lot of the younger rookie and first and second year wide receivers, is that secure the ball then go. We see it all the time with the big names.
Yeah, you see it in veterans sometimes too.
Yeah, I mean Sammy Watkins does it. Des Bryant's done it his whole career. Des Bryant's jumping over 4 people to catch the ball, but when Des Bryant is wide open in the middle of the field, it hits him right in the numbers.
Think about the highlight reel.
Yeah, well, he's still not signed.
Paul Richardson, ADP 158. I'm not really excited about Paul Richardson. There's a lot of other people I'd take before Paul Richardson.
But he's so fast.
And he could be that outside guy.
We need a drop of Josh just saying so fast.
So fast.
He's so fast.
What were you saying? He could be that outside guy?
He's the other outside guy. So Crowder's going to be your slot guy. And then you're going to have Doxson on one side, and then Paul Richardson is going to be your other outside wide receiver.
But it's Alex Smith.
It is Alex Smith. And like I said earlier, he doesn't throw the contested guy. So if Paul Richardson is fast and gets open down the field and is standing in the end zone with nobody with 5 yards around him, Alex Smith's going to find him. When Josh Doxson has 4 dudes on him and he's like, I can jump over him and catch it, Alex Smith's going to be like, I don't care.
I don't throw contested passes.
And that's Inside the Huddle with Brad the Dad.
Yep.
And tight ends, we're going to wrap up here. Sometimes they like to run 2 tight end set. Coming from you with a tight end whisper on that knowledge. So Vernon Davis, undrafted, possible option. That's all I'm really going to say about Vernon Davis. Jordan Reed, ADP 92.
Oh, so talented.
He is so talented. He is so injury prone too.
So soft though.
I think we've said so much about Jordan Reed that I don't really need to elaborate here. You know when he's healthy. If you can get him at ADP 92, and we got the dyno going, squeaky dyno. So thanks Elsa for that. Yeah. So past her bedtime. If you can get him at 92 and he stays healthy, absolute great value, great steal.
If he's healthy. That's like, and we've said it like 20 times. If he's healthy. And
right.
We got it.
So, yeah, I mean, so that pretty much wraps up the Washington Redskins. Anything to add there, guys?
No, I'm kind of excited to see some preseason to see how Alex Smith works in that offense. One thing you didn't mention about Alex Smith is that he is still very athletic, so he does get you some of those cheap fantasy points with quarterback rushing yards.
So athletic.
I mean, he ran a Tim Tebow offense at Utah.
He did?
Yeah, Urban Meyer was his coach.
I know, I'm just kidding.
So he's still athletic. He can still get you those rushing yards. He can still run and get a couple touchdowns, which that actually kind of gives him a better floor when you look at quarterbacks.
Absolutely. And now bringing up the rear in this show, but hopefully not in the division, Dallas. All right, joining us now is the self-proclaimed tight end whisperer, Rob the Heartthrob, our resident Dallas Cowboys expert, a.k.a. a friend of ours who is a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. So, Rob, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm real happy to be here and defend my precious Dallas Cowboys tonight.
Well, you're definitely going to have to defend him, as Brad broke him down, and he's coming at you with fire.
All right, let's hear it, Brad. Let's see what you got.
All right, so I'm going to start it off with the player that everybody wants to talk about, and that's Ezekiel Elliott, right? Last year, suspension really cut his season short, kind of ruined everything that he had possibly going for him. This year, no suspension. Hopefully comes into camp more in shape than he did last year, ready to play, ready to bust it out, and ready to do what he's supposed to do. He's got an ADP of 3, right? He's the workhorse there. They moved all their big weapons away. I mean, we can say Dak's good and everything, but he's not going to lead that team to any promised land. They're going to ride Zeke's coattails. Just like they ran DeMarco Murray in the ground, they're going to ride Zeke in the ground.
Ooh.
I know you got something to say about that, Rob.
Hey, it's yet to be seen. He's a reliable guy. He's a big back. He's got strong legs, good makeup. I think he's built to last. It's yet to be seen. We'll see if he can get through 16 games again this year without an issue. Suspension-wise, I don't think health is going to be an issue as long as he can stay on the field with the other stuff that he usually has going on.
I agree completely. I think actually you're going to see his receiving numbers go up this year compared to last year. I think last year they started to use him in the backfield, passing the ball a little bit. We saw a little flashes and glimpses of it. But I think this year, with Dez being gone, Jason Witten being gone, a lot of those reliable checkdowns that Dak had, they're probably going to, go to Zeke a little more.
Yeah,
I appreciate you. Oh, go ahead.
No, I agree with that. I think the big takeaway here isn't to talk about necessarily Zeke there, Zeke not there, what Dak's going to do, what Dak's not going to do. I think the bigger question is going to be, what is the health of this offensive line going to look like? And I know that that's not real sexy when we talk about fantasy, but it's extremely relevant when you talk about a team like the Dallas Cowboys because they are so dependent on those guys up front to win them games. Zeke can be as good as Zeke can be. If that offensive line isn't healthy and we've got second and third string tackles and guards in there, they're not going to be successful no matter who's back there running the ball, no matter who's receiving the ball from Dak Prescott. I've got some interesting numbers. Tyron Smith missed 3 or 4 weeks last year. One, everybody probably remembers that Falcons game. 6 sacks on Dak Prescott.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, that's kind of unheard of in the modern era, especially a Dallas Cowboys team through the last 5-6 years has had a dominant offensive line. He was sacked 13 times, Dak Prescott.
They did a good job
apologize.
protecting Dak, just not a good job protecting Tony Romo.
Yeah.
Correction too, he was sacked 32 times. 32 times last year, which was up 7 over the 25 he took in 2016 with a relatively healthy offensive line. Sans a couple missed weeks from La'el Collins. However, last year they missed, like I mentioned, the weeks of Tyrone Smith's injuries. They were playing different defenses that they weren't used to seeing with Ezekiel Elliott being hurt. It's just ugly all across the board without that offensive line being healthy.
Yeah, you bring up the offensive line and Smith being out. And I think that's why when you look at Dak Prescott, last year we had a kind of a tale of two cities, right? Or tale of two seasons there. You had the first half of the season, he was a very reliable, a number one quarterback you could start every week. And then about the time that injury went down, then you started missing Zeke and all the Zeke stuff started coming out. And then Dak fell off the map kind of towards the end of the year there, halfway through the season. He only had one game above 15 points in the second half of the season. And I think that's what you got to worry about. Yeah, that's what you got to worry about with Dak. And now I wonder, with Dez being gone and Jason Witten being gone, if that's going to, maybe we see another regression from Dak Prescott. Because if anything does happen to that offensive line, he does get kind of – you've seen it. He gets a little skittish back there when he doesn't have his reliable left tackle there that he's never had to worry about.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw his interception numbers skyrocket. I mean, he kind of had a bit of regression that was to be expected, going from 4 picks in his rookie season, which nobody thought he was going to be able to maintain that. But to shoot up to 13 – their strength of schedule wasn't horrible last year either, so it's not like they were playing premium secondaries throughout the year. I do know that obviously they did miss the scheme planning from defensive coordinators with Zeke not being there. That hurt them. However, if you watch the games, he did. He looked like a deer in the headlights most of the year when he was throwing the ball, when the pocket crumbled. He was a different guy. One thing I will say, when you bring up Jason Witten being gone, Dak will miss him as a safety valve, as a little dump-off option. And I do agree that if Ezekiel Elliott can pick up a majority of that work, obviously that's going to be an exponential increase in his fantasy value over being the number one, probably pure rushing running back available.
Yeah, we kind of brought it up. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, we kind of brought up Dez and Jason Witten being gone. If you look at all the receivers, even with Bryce Butler and all the tight ends they lost last year, they lost 153 targets from last year that are gone. They have to fill these roles now. They got to rely on some of these other wide receivers.
So who do you think?
Yeah, and they're filling them with some questionable guys too.
Yeah, you want to elaborate on that? You want to elaborate on some of those guys right now?
All right, just going through the list. Obviously, some familiar faces returning. Cole Beasley, who did enjoy some pretty good success in the 2016 season as a possession guy. I know I had him on my team in our redraft league. You guys probably remember me talking about him nonstop. I think he averaged about 12 points per game, which isn't bad for a little slot guy, especially when he was sharing all those possessions with Dez Bryant, with Jason Witten, with Terrence Williams. Now this year, I mean, he's pretty much standing alone with Terrence Williams as the holdovers. They brought in Michael Gallup through the draft, Alan Hearns, Deonta Thompson came in as a free agent, all of which I'm not super excited about. I like Michael Gallup in the future, but for being a relevant fantasy option this year, I'm not going to get too excited about that. What I am kind of excited about, I guess, if you're going to talk about fantasy relevance in a PPR format, Cole Beasley isn't sexy, but I mean, I think he is, like you've mentioned before, he's a poor man's Julian Edelman, and it's tough to argue that if you look at the numbers.
Yeah, he's more of a waiver wire guy. I think because he's going undrafted in most leagues, so you could just pick him up if you need wide receiver help in the bi-apocalypses or something.
Or just leave him in the trash where he belongs.
Yeah, that's a really poor man's pick.
I mean, when they play the Giants, you could probably go with him. Other than that, when they're playing the Philly secondary, probably not going Cole Beasley.
Well, I mean, something that's probably will come off as a bit of a surprise. 2016 season with Cole Beasley, 833 yards. I mean, not crazy. He did catch 5 touchdowns. He's not a red zone target, but 5 touchdowns out of a little slot receiver, possession guy, isn't bad. And I mean, we were approaching 900 yards there in that season. Is his usage going to go up? Probably. Are they going to scheme against that? Probably. That's kind of yet to be seen. I think that you're right, though. A majority of the work that we did see going to Jason Witten is probably going to now go to Ezekiel Elliott with not a lot of other options there. Another kind of odd thing they've got going on now is Tavon Austin. I'm looking actually right now at the depth chart. They have Tavon Austin listed as a running back. I know that he's a wide receiver. He had a little bit of success with the Rams in some weird schemes. He's a speed guy. He's got hands. Jason Garrett has come out and said that they're going to use him kind of out of the backfield and run some weird offenses with him. I don't think we can count on him for anything. I know maybe after a few weeks, if that's sustainable, maybe pick him up for a bye week, something like that. But you probably won't see me drafting him, and I'm a big Cowboys homer. So
No, the big thing I see with Tavon Austin, I think Josh wants out of this. If he does get that running back position eligibility, that's somebody you could put in there in a bye week that's going to get PPR points in a PPR format because he catches 5. That's 5 points for 5 catches, and he's, I think, maybe 50 yards on that. That's 10 points, which for a bye week fill-in as a poor man's running back, I mean.
Yeah, I think he's going to have more of a Tariq Cohen kind of role. What I'm interested in, Rob, is actually, have you heard anything out of the Cowboys camp about the new tight end that they're using?
Can you repeat that?
Rob, have you heard anything out of the Cowboys camp about the new tight end they're using? So I've heard some things, but I wasn't exactly sure what information you have.
If you have anything other than what they were talking about Rico Gathers recently, I don't. I don't know what you've heard, but
so what I understand is that Dak actually has a really strong connection with the new tight end, and they're talking about possibly utilizing him quite a bit. I don't know how well that's going to come to fruition. I mean, I know that Jason Witt was obviously a big part of this team. I'm wondering how well this new tight end core that they have, how much they're going to actually be able to be used.
Yeah, I heard something recently. They were talking about the tight end core that's in place right now. Obviously, they brought in Dalton Schultz in the draft in the 4th round. He's not really an offensive tight end. He's a blocker first. What they do have on the depth chart is, I believe, less than 5 receptions total as a staff in the NFL. Not a lot to go off there stats-wise. Rico Gathers and Jeff Swaim. Jeff Swaim obviously getting a little bit of work as the understudy of Jason Witten, but he's never been a receiving first tight end. So it's yet to be seen how they're going to use him. I don't see Dalton Schultz coming in and catching a lot of Dak Prescott passes this year. I don't see Jeff Swaim having a big year, and it's yet to be seen what they're going to do with Rico Gathers. I think that there's going to be a big change in the scheme and in the offense altogether in Dallas with the personnel that they brought in. They're going to have to change something other than obviously pounding the ball with Zeke Elliott. The receivers just aren't there, and they might not be there for a few years. We'll see what happens with Michael Gallup and others that they did draft.
Yeah, kind of going back to Zeke, though, Rob, it does kind of worry me with Zeke being really the only proven offensive weapon they have there with the 8-man in the box and stuff like that. I feel like that could really hurt his value this year because we saw last year that Denver game when they were getting beat, they quit giving Zeke the ball and they just got ran out of the house.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it is a concern, obviously, when you make yourself a little bit more one-dimensional. Something to think about, though, is obviously when Zeke is going, when Ezekiel Elliott is on the top of his game, he's the best offensive player in the universe, and he can take over a game. He saves your defense. He chews up clock, and he's proven it. Obviously, people like to forget his 2016 season, and dwell on the fact that he was suspended last year. But before that, the guy's unreal. And another guy I'd like to bring up too, rookie Rod Smith from last year, kind of a fringe PPR kind of guy as a third down back. He had a couple glimpses of beauty last year. I don't know if you guys remember, he had that little catch and run for 95 yards.
Yeah, but Rob, wasn't that during the Zeke suspension though?
It was during the Zeke suspension, but they still used him in that role even after Zeke came back, a little bit more limitedly, but he was still being used in that role. I don't know what they're planning for him now, but obviously they're going to have to game plan to utilize what they've got there.
Yeah, I kind of worry about Rod Smith this year with Zeke being healthy and projected to play the whole season. Then you got Tavon Austin, they're putting it running back, and then they drafted Bo Scarborough. I just don't see Rod Smith getting any valuable work in fantasy unless you're in a super, 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 super deep dynasty league where you got to protect. That's the only only value I really see in Rod Smith. But the number one wide receiver is Allen Hurns. Is going to be. He's the de facto number one. He might not be number one wide receiver, but he's their number one wide receiver. I don't know how it's going to work out. We've seen glimpses of greatness from Allen Hurns, but we've also seen very bad stuff. But, I mean, I think Dak might be a better quarterback than Blake Bortles, so maybe that helps.
Come on, dude. He's definitely a better quarterback than Blake Bortles.
No, erroneous.
He's way. Look, I'm sorry. I know Rob's gonna agree with me on this. Dak is actually a good quarterback. I think the only
Dak's
thing
a good quarterback.
What's really holding the Cowboys back is
college.
Is their head coach and their play calling. That's what's holding the Cowboys back.
I mean, if you want to say there's something holding them back, I would probably say there's nothing holding them back. If you look at their last two seasons, they've had back-to-back winning years. They ran into kind of a buzzsaw last year with the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC East, Super Bowl champion NFC East, Philadelphia Eagles. So, I mean, to win 9 games and say it was an unsuccessful season is kind of stupid too.
Well, with the expectations that were set, I think it wasn't a successful season.
Yeah, the expectations were high, but I think people knew going into it, especially when Zeke Elliott stopped fighting that suspension and just took it, and they knew that he was going to miss substantial time. They knew that they were probably going to, at best case, go 500 in the games that he was suspended. It was still pretty good season to win 9 games when your whole offense is based around one guy and he gets suspended. I mean, Des Bryant wasn't relevant all year. Dak had a horrible year.
That's the thing, though. So we've looked and we've seen what these coaches have come in and do, especially in the last couple of years. Doug Peterson with Philadelphia. You have Sean McVay with the Rams. I mean, they're taking teams that really weren't that great before they got there, and now they figured out how to use everyone. For me, I just haven't seen that out of Jason Garrett. I haven't seen him being able to utilize his guys to their best abilities and maximize people's talent. I mean, we talk about great coaches, and that's what they do. They take average players and they make them, above par. You get 75% out of them that are superstar level instead of actually having superstar players. So for me, I don't know. I just wish that the Cowboys would go in a different direction head coaching wise, and I think that you might really start to see Dak Prescott flourish along with some of these young receivers.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably onto something, and I know there's a lot of Cowboys fans out there that are going to say say the same things that you're saying right now about Jason Garrett. A big favorite was obviously Rod Marinelli, who came in and ran that defense last year. Took them from one of the worst defenses statistically to, I mean, middle of the pack still last year, but a vast improvement over where they were.
Yep, great points, Rob, and we really appreciate you joining us here for the Dallas segment of the NFC East breakdown. Thank you again for making Empty Wagon Fantasy Football history by talking about the O-line more than any other episode has ever talked about an O-line. Any other quick ads you want to add before we have to let you go?
We'll see. We're going to have our draft in our League of Record on August 25th. I'm sure the guys are going to talk a lot about it, but you'll see I run my mouth a lot. Guys, hopefully they'll have me back on the show to gloat about the team that I draft maybe towards the end of August, early September. But you guys enjoy breaking down the rest of the NFC East, and take it easy on my Cowboys.
Yep. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, thanks,
for
guys.
joining us,
Have a
Rob.
good night.
You too.
All right, thanks again, Rob, for joining our show, and that wraps up the Dallas breakdown. And that wraps up the NFC East breakdown. So we talked about the defending Super Bowl champs, Philadelphia Eagles. We talked about New York Football Giants. Talked about the Washington Redskins. And then, of course, Rob the Heartthrob joining us for the Dallas Cowboys. And that wraps up our show here. Another episode in the books here from the Empty Wagon Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks again for tuning in. Join us next week when we break down the NFC South. And if you want to hit us during the week, fire some questions at us. Find us on Twitter at TackJonesForBrad, at FFJoshHughes for Josh, at HattrickPat37 for myself. Have a great week, everyone. Stay tuned for more updates and fantasy football advice. Hat Trick out.
Later, guys.
Later, haters.
Time to go to bed.